Where you from? Man, I'm from down in the valley.
I got people trying to wish and pray that I'ma fall about it, all about it till we spoke in person. Don't wanna talk about it now, huh? Oh, you sound tough, toying with them, don't get wound up. How you wound up? Another number in the round up. Put the town up, built the sling up.
You mean like San Antonio? Nah, man, farther.
Got the east side flow. I'm a giant in the space like FIFA. All the kids
V's up, player.
Every time when they see my show, thinking that it happened overnight.
Let's start the show, Wattis.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Danny with Down in the Valley Sports, and we have another special guest with us today. You might know him from the local stage, you might know him from the national stage, but it's Alex Del Barrio from CBS Sports and ESPN Radio. How you doing today, Alex?
Doing great, man. It's so exciting to be on here. I know we've been trying to get this together for a little while, and you obviously know that this is the busy time of year for us college basketball announcers. It's the best time of the year, but it's pretty hectic. I'm in between games right now. I had a game just the other night at Grand Canyon, which was a lot of fun. It's the first time I'd ever been in that arena for a big Mountain West game against UNLV, and then coming up on Sunday, I have a game against UNC Wilmington. So. Yeah, we've got a lot going on. It's a busy time, but happy to be here.
No, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, we appreciate you squeezing us in your busy schedule. Yeah, I saw those fat heads that they made of you at the game. That must have been a trip. How did you like that?
Oh, it was hilarious. I knew they would do that type of stuff, and usually, John Rothstein and some of the other bigger name guys under the network usually get that type of treatment. But I've been lucky and blessed to be working with Coach Pete Gillen pretty much all season long as my kind of regular partner, which has been kind of a welcome experience for this year. Usually, I'm working with a bunch of different people, but this year I've been working with Coach, and when you're working with Coach, like there's a very good chance that people are going to do stuff like that, and especially that fan base there has been incredible. So it was a welcome surprise to see my fat head.
That's awesome. Yeah, you've got fans like the Cameron Crazies at Duke, so it's probably to be expected in the college sports setting, huh?
Yeah, you can't beat the really great college venues, and I think Grand Canyon, for those who've never experienced that, like if you're in Phoenix and Grand Canyon's playing, I really hope it'll be something that people will start to recognize. I've known, obviously the Cameron Crazies, and you see around, the fans at Allen Fieldhouse at Kansas or whatever. Those are, obviously there's great fans all over the country, great student sections all over the country. But in doing this job, I wouldn't have been exposed to, the fans at Utah State, which I think are the best college basketball fans in the country at Utah State. And they travel and they go all over the Mountain West. But I think a very close second are these, they call them the Havocs there at Grand Canyon. They were absolutely tremendous. They were there early, and kudos to Grand Canyon for allocating their best seats for the students on one side of the floor. So it's a great television product when they do it that way.
That's awesome. And for you fanatics tuning in with us, make sure you like and subscribe. If you enjoy seeing guests like Alex Del Barrio, make sure you like, subscribe, and follow to stay tuned in with what we got going on. So now that we've kind of done a little bit of an introduction, let's get to your Valley roots. People are seeing you now on the national stage. We used to see you on Channel 5, but let's go back to, little old Alex when, his brother was interning at like Channel 4, Channel 5, like inspired to follow, journalism. Like, what, not just your brother, but what else was getting you motivated into following sports and put you down this path and commitment of, getting to where you are today?
And you really did your homework. I don't know if I've ever even said that in an interview before. But yeah, I think I was exposed to it like locally that way. My brother, I don't remember if I was in the sixth, seventh, or eighth grade, but he was doing like the Edinburgh high school football games on KURV at the time. And, my brother wasn't a play-by-play guy. He was more of an analyst. They had another guy Tony Casso, who's now like the head of officiating here down in the Valley for Tasso. Like he was the play-by-play guy. But this is kind of my first exposure to like seeing people do the job in the booth, like in a booth, because I would tag along sometimes. Um, but I think the inkling to do commentary of any kind actually came from when I first started liking wrestling. Because most of the, I remember like even pretending I was Vince McMahon going into in a tape recorder, like in the early days of me watching wrestling, which was I was about 9 or 10 years old. I guess I would have been 10 years old. 1993 would have been right when I started watching wrestling, and I remember just like that being something I would wanted to do, whether ring announcing or commentary at the desk or whatever. And that's kind of how I got exposed to play by play. And as I started to get into sports, like as I got into middle school, I kind of felt that that was like the path I wanted to take. Um, but the job I really wanted when I first started getting into sports was to anchor Sports Center. And, you know, this, but, the younger people watching this might not really understand, like, the pinnacle of sports broadcasting, in my opinion, was anchoring Sports Center. Like,
Yeah.
getting a job to anchor Sports Center was like the end all be all job. Like, you wanted to be on the big show. You wanted to have one of those nights anchoring Sports Center, and um, that's how important, culturally significant, working at ESPN and anchoring Sports Center was. So that was kind of the route I thought I was going to have to take, because it was more visible how you could become like an anchor by going through local news and then working your way up and eventually get brought in to ESPN. Whereas play by play, unless you were like in radio and unless you were in the minor leagues, like that was the only real play by play. There was no ESPN 7 like there are now, right? Um, and Fox Sports 1 and Fox Sports 2 and CBS Sports Network, and like all of those things came much, 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 much later, right? So even as I was in college, like a lot of these networks did not exist, and the opportunities were few and far between to call games, and it was largely a part-time enterprise, right?
Mhm.
Then as the regional sports networks became a thing, and all the teams had their own play-by-play guys, and all the teams had their own radio guys, and then all these other national opportunities for college basketball, college football, college baseball, etc., there became a lot more opportunities, and knowing that you could go that direction. So I was happy that that happened, because even when I started, there was like minor league basketball was nothing. Like it was a
Mhm.
nothing entity, right? Even the D League was a bit of a joke. It was all centralized in the southeast part of the United States. Um, but as the league started to expand and the NBA started to care about player development, then the D League became a thing, and then I knew like, okay, that was a potential pathway, was to go through the D League and then potentially the WNBA and then eventually into the NBA. And it just so happened, like, the way the rest of my career went, I've kind of been all over the place with things. You mentioned WWE and the Globetrotters, like that's very much live event and entertainment, right, as opposed to sport. Um, but it was all important, kind of to my journey, because then you're exposed to doing things at a much higher level. It may not be the exact job that you want, but it's like being exposed to being someone at a much bigger level, for a
Mhm.
much bigger entity, for a much bigger brand. So that was what those experiences helped. And then, as I got, along the way, getting the chance to do a lot of these digital games, like ESPN. It used to be ESPN 3
Mhm.
before it became ESPN Plus. ESPN 3, and then BN Sports had a digital outlet that used to do Conference USA games, and a few other things. Like that's how I got my TV tape to eventually send to CBS, and how I eventually ended up at CBS. So, um, it's been kind of a winding road. There's no linear path to doing this, but I'm very blessed to be able to, travel the country and go to some great venues and meet some great coaches, and call games for some really awesome teams on CBS.
Yeah, so it's like they say, luck equals preparation plus opportunity, and you were pretty damn well prepared if you were taking mental and physical reps since 1993. By gosh, that's 33 years ago now. Not to make you feel old, but that's a lot of repetition. Of I'm sure you were doing it for fun, and it eventually became a profession. It sounds like the opportunities only expanded over time. But you're exactly right. I mean, the show was Sports Center on ESPN. I remember, being a kid, uh, watching Stuart Scott, Rich Eisen, all the likes of them, on Sports Center at night, and then it being on repeat after that, all the way till like 2, 3 in the morning. So great show. And I mean, and there's a balance, it sounds like, of being an entertainer and someone that has to inform the fan base of what's going on. So very much a grind. And so you talked a little bit about the many opportunities that have presented themselves. What do you think it took to earn those opportunities? Well, they just didn't fall in your lap. What did you do to earn it? And when do you think that first real break in the business was? You feel like you kind of made it, or you were on your way?
Um, I don't know if any of us really earned this. Like it's one of those things. Like I hate anything that hate's a strong word, but I dislike any mention of the notion that we're entitled to anything based on
Sure.
any type of work, right? Because there have been so many near misses that I've had. I've been the runner up for I don't know how many NBA jobs, 4 different NBA jobs at least, and a finalist for even more.
Wow.
And did I earn those jobs? Like, yeah, you could say I earned them, but I did not get them. And we don't get these jobs for any specific reason other than someone who's a decision maker thinks that your voice, your personality, the way you do the game, the way you could represent their organization is the right fit. And what they believe is a fit is different than somebody else that could be in that exact same role, right?
Mhm.
And obviously talent comes into it. No, the work and the preparation, like you still have to know how to do the job, right? It's like, if you're hiring a contractor to build a house, there's 10,000 people that can build a house for you, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, like if you're building a home, you've looked at a number of different designs and ultimately came to a decision. It's like, I like the way this guy builds houses. I want him to build my house. It doesn't mean that any of the 9,999 are any better or worse. Some of them may cut corners. Some of them may do things, maybe are more talented in one aspect of things, of the design of the home or whatever. But there's really not much difference between the top tier and the second tier of this.
Hmm.
And I think you'll find that there's certainly tiers of talent to this, but even that is subjective, right? It's just kind of
Hmm.
what we know an announcer to sound like or be like or whatever. So I'll never say that I feel like I like earned anything or along those lines. I feel like I've put in the work and I've been very blessed and grateful for the opportunities that I've been given. To answer the question of like when I feel like I've made it, I mean I still don't feel like I have, right? I think the moment you start thinking in that regard, the moment you start getting complacent, and the moment you start getting, if you start feeling entitled and you start feeling like resentful for opportunities you don't have, right? I think
Hmm.
yeah, I think like my big thing along the way is I try to look at things from Alex of 5 years ago. Would Alex of would Alex of 5 years ago be grateful for the opportunities that you have now? Or would he be excited for the version of you that exists right now? And if the answer is yes, then you have nothing to be ungrateful for or nothing to be resentful for. And so that's the way I've always looked at that, especially when I first got to CBS, right? When I first got to CBS, I was only doing a handful of games, and I still had to find other ways to make a living. But I know that the goal for 5 years prior to me, version of Alex, was to be a national sports announcer. And I did that. And I accomplished these other things along the way that helped me get there. So I think for me, like I look at every stage of my career, getting to the Globetrotters could be considered a made it moment, right? Getting to my childhood dream of WWE was a making it moment. Getting to national TV and getting a CBS Blazer, right? That's a making it moment to a lot of people. But I
Hmm.
think I think the healthy thing to do is know that there's always more, but looking at it from a perspective of be grateful for what you have and still be uh, and still
Most,
desire to continue the journey, right? If that
yeah.
makes sense. I don't know if that answers your question. I know, but
It's
I think I've been so grateful to accomplish multiple childhood dreams that it's so hard to pinpoint a make it moment, especially when I know there are still goals that I would like to achieve. Being a voice of an NBA team or calling NBA games for a network is on my bucket list. Doing baseball at the network level or a Major League Baseball package would be something I really want to do. Getting back into pro wrestling is something that I would love to do one day. So uh, even going and calling the Vaqueros football games, believe it or not, was still something love to cross off my bucket list.
yeah, I mean, your alma mater, that would be truly special. It'd be a full circle moment,
If they're
as
listening out there.
hint, hint. So, March Madness is upon us, and you cover quite a few mid major teams. So, who's on your radar this year as a bracket buster? There's always that a 5 versus 12 seed upset that occurs. That's almost guaranteed to happen every year. So, who's on your
Yes.
radar for mid major teams? And the other question around the NCAA tournament is, what's the best bracket you've ever had?
Oh, I couldn't even tell you the best bracket ever. Like the best bracket I've ever had. I've had a lot of times where I've literally had, the goal is, right, you want to have at least 14 of the Sweet 16 still left after the first weekend.
Mhm.
And then your goal after this, and then you need to have three of the four in the final four, and you need to have your national championship game intact. That's so I think a lot of people work frontwards, or when they should work backwards. They need to
Yeah.
pick their final four first and then work backwards. Is
Mhm.
the best advice I have for you making a bracket. But even in those scenarios, I found myself where like I've had 14 of 16, and then I've had like seven, maybe six of my eight in the Elite Eight. But then I only have two of the final four, and my national championship gets ousted. It's like you
Mhm.
can even have three of the four in the final four, but if your national champion is ousted, it doesn't matter. You're still gonna lose because people don't see how much more valuable picking the champion is in all of
Mhm.
these bracket pools. Like picking the champion is worth the most points.
Mhm.
So you need to get that right. If you don't get that right, you're not going to win. So that's why I always say pick your champion first and then work backwards. Um, but as far as like upsets or teams to watch out of the mid majors, like you know, um, St. Mary's and Santa Clara on the West Coast. I haven't had a chance to see either of those teams, but uh, both those teams have had really great seasons. They just played each other the other night. I think those are always two teams to consider based on where they are in the seeding line. You know, I'll always take a West Coast Conference second or third team over anybody that's like seventh or eighth in the Big Ten or the Big 12 or something like that. If that's what
Mhm.
the seeding line ends up in the MAC. Obviously, Miami, Ohio is still a big story with them being unbeaten. A lot of folks look at their strength of schedule. Obviously, it's not great, but they play in the MAC, right? And no one wants to go play Miami, Ohio, so that's unfortunate for them. I think they'll get in no matter what. If they lose in the conference tournament, they're going to lose to Akron. If Akron gets in, Akron has players on that team that have tournament experience, and they are still looking for their first NCAA tournament win as a program. And Coach John Gross is as good of a coach as there is in mid-major college basketball. So that's a team that I would watch, certainly for an upset. Liberty is a veteran team. They've got a lot of fifth-year players on that team. They had a 16-game win streak get snapped the other night against Western Kentucky, and they're a team that kind of needed a loss in the regular season. But if they get in, which is a big if, because they still have to win the Conference USA tournament, they'll be dangerous, and they're a team that has a lot of guys back from the team that kind of got their butts kicked by Oregon last year in the first round, and they're a little bit hungry. Like I always look at teams that are trying to get back for the second time with a lot of the same players back, and you see that more in the mid majors. Utah State is going to be a tough out, I think, in the NCAA tournament. If New Mexico gets in, which is a big if right now in the Mountain West, they're only projected to have one team in right now. And I'll be honest with you, if Grand Canyon gets in, that's a team that I'd be worried about in the NCAA tournament. So those are a few of the upsets that I would kind of or teams that if they get seated in the right place, that I'd be concerned if I was on the other side of that.
Yeah, if you look at the odds of a perfect bracket, which is impossible and will never happen because it is one in like 9.2 quintillion. And so that's 10 to the 18th power. It is not going to happen. So, those of you that think you're going to get a perfect bracket, just lower your expectations. But if you do take Alex's advice, because considering someone that's more of a basketball expert or knowledgeable, not that any general fan is considering themselves to be one, they do improve your odds to 1 in 120 billion. So only 200 times the number of people on earth, but who's counting, right? The best you can do is to pick the champion, like Alex said.
Yeah, pick the champion and then work backwards. That's because you're only trying to win your pool. You're not trying to like, yeah, everyone wants to win the $1 million or whatever it is that some of these places have, but like if you're going to try to win your pool, that's the best strategy that I have. It might not pay off, but it's much more likely to pay off if you could make sure that you pick your champion, pick your final four, then work backwards, right?
Hmm. So, I very much appreciate your time. I wanted to wrap up with maybe more of an inspirational question here. Like what advice would you give to young up and coming broadcasters that are trying to break into the scene? And then a little bit of a follow up to that is, when people from the valley watch you and listen to you on the national stage, because you will continue to do great things. I believe it. What do you hope they believe and see in you?
Well, I always go back to this quote from Walt Disney: "All of our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them." And I think so many people will run into people in their lives that will try to discourage them from trying to accomplish the things that they want to accomplish, or whatever it may be. It does not have to be being a national sportscaster. It could literally just be going to law school. It could be becoming a doctor. It could be whatever. Running for office. Again, whatever it may be. Um, if you work hard, if you're kind to people, if you put in the effort that it requires, and be humble, like good things are going to happen to you. I think that's the number one thing I would say to everyone is, um, good things happen to good people, and yes, good things happen to bad people too, but it's more likely for it to happen if you're a good person, you treat people right. um, the good will come to you, right? And and I always tell people, like, it's okay to have dreams, and if people are not supportive of your dreams, that's okay too. You need to use that as fuel to help you move forward. And I think that's the number one thing. And as far as people from the valley or whoever, like you know, I'm trying to be someone who, George Sedano and I are friends, and I believe we're the only Latino college basketball, college football announcers, and he does the NBA as well. That do games nationally out there in English, right? And we take a lot of great pride in representing our Latino community and being like a face and a voice, so that people who look like us that are younger realize that the potential is there to make those things happen. So those are the things that I would say are most important to me. And for people from the valley, you know, I want them to know that there's two things I want them to know. One is, this is still home. Like I still live here. I own a home here in the valley, and and I happen to be able to do all of these things all over the country. So I don't neglect where I came from at all. I still live here and I still pay taxes here. But it doesn't mean I didn't have to leave for a while to then come back. And I think for a long time, my generation always looked at the valley as a place you needed to escape from. And it took me a while to shift that this is home and no longer a place that you needed to escape from. It was a place you needed to leave so that you could explore. It's very much like I try to look at things like this is the nerdiest thing I'm going to say on this podcast. Like it's Samwise leaving the Shire with Frodo and the Fellowship, but he still comes back. Like
Yeah.
Frodo's got to leave. Like he went through too much and he had to go. But like some of us are able to take everything we learned in the journey we had and still come home and figure out what our life looks like even after going through the journey. Like, but the fact of the matter is, the point is, no one that lives in the Shire has the life experience of those other, those three hobbits that left the Shire, right? And I think that's important to like. You could make a lot of comparisons to how the Valley is the Shire. We kind of live in our little bubble, and until you
Yeah.
leave the Shire and experience the world, you don't really know what else is out there. And sometimes it's good to be able to experience new things and still kind of return. But in the same token, it's also okay to leave the Valley and find other things and but as long as you keep finding your way back in some way, shape, or form, whether it's mentorship, whether it's coming back to visit family, or maybe it's starting a business or something else. But just don't look at it as the place to escape from. Look at it as the place that is your home, but you're going off to have adventures.
Mhm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, as someone that moved 800 miles away from home from the Valley after graduating to start my professional career, I mean, I could not agree with you more. And I'm still building those life experiences and knowledge to bring back home someday to the Rio Grande Valley. So, yeah, I admire everything that you've done. You're an inspiration not only to me, but a lot of people in the Valley. So keep up the great work. I'll continue to follow your career. And thank you so much for joining us. It truly was a pleasure to have you on, our Down in the Valley Sports podcast show here. So with that, thank you everybody for joining. Please like and subscribe, and V's up. We'll throw in a Go Bronx in there too, for you. Take care.
See you guys.